Welcome to the May 9th HWMA meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'll start by taking roll. Director Jones.
Here.
Director Castellano.
Here.
Director Katie. Here. Director Bushnell is absent, and Director Wilson. Here. And I am here. All right, we will move on to the consent calendar. So A is approved minutes from the April 11th, 2024 HWMA Board of Directors meeting. B is review and approve December 2023 financial reports. C is review and approve January 2024 financial reports. And D is to review and approve February financial reports. Director Keller-Heckman has requested to pull item 2A. Does any other member wish to pull any other item off the agenda? All right. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Does someone want to make a motion for items B, C, and D?
I so move to recommend we pass items 2, B, C, and D.
I'll second.
All right. A motion by Director Jones, a second from Director Castellano. Can we get a staff report on 2A?
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with the document for the minutes for April, so we will bring those back to this board for approval next month.
All right, sounds good. And that will take us to item 3, oral.
We need to vote on the motion in a second.
No, not if it's pulled. Oh, yeah, but all in favor of item B, C, and
for
the rest of them?
passing the
Yes.
2B through 2D.
Okay, all in favor of B, C, and D?
Aye.
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 Now we'll move on to oral and written communication. Does anybody have any public comment? Anybody online? All right, I will then close public comment. Move on to item 4, approve resolution 2024-04, authorizing executive director to enter into a one-time hazardous waste transportation and disposal service agreement without competitive bidding due to emergency circumstances. And can we get a staff report?
Thank you, Chair. So on May 1st, at approximately 3 a.m., a fire broke out at the HWMA's Universal Hazardous Waste Storage Facility. Staff is continuing to investigate, but we believe that it was due to a lithium battery out of either a car or a forklift that we've had stored that we've been having a little bit of difficulty in getting rid of. That was what we believe is the original ignition source, and then different chemical makeups of batteries around that caught fire. Luckily, we were very lucky in this instance. Our suppression system kicked on. Humboldt Bay Fire was incredibly quick to respond. And a special thank you goes out to Recology, mainly their morning drivers, for notifying response teams as well. So they were able to respond and keep the fire to a minimal size with very minimal damage. This resolution is requesting, obviously, that we enter into a one-time agreement. Our current hazardous waste transportation provider does not provide this type of service. This is a very specialized service when you deal with universal or hazardous waste that's gone through a fire damage. So these are a special entity that we've reached out to that can handle this in an immediate fashion from the moment that it's going to be packaged up to the moment that it's disposed. So they will handle everything. They'll be coming to our facility. They'll be categorizing and packaging. They'll be transportating, and they'll be responsible for the disposal. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
I have a question about this expenditure. Will this need a budget amendment, or do we have enough funds to cover an emergency like this?
We have enough funds allocated in a couple of different line items. We've realized some savings that we went over in the mid-year, and we're continuing to see some of those savings. So we do have excess funds. We also still have a little bit of excess funds in the general HHW disposal. We don't predict that it's going to be all the way up to 50, but it should be somewhere in the $30,000 to $45,000 range. And we've looked, and we will not have to make any changes outside of maybe moving a little bit of money from line items. But at the end of the year, we will make that adjustment.
Were there any environmental concerns, with the fire and the lithium batteries and such?
Obviously, outside the immediate concern of fire is the off gas and the smoke. So Humboldt Bay Fire is obviously very capable of dealing with this. They've responded to our facility in the past for different types of fires. So they took all the necessary precautions. And then when HWMA staff and county environmental health staff were on scene, we took necessary precautions as well. We used fans to ventilate the area. We made sure the doors were clear. We kept staff and residents, businesses away from the affected area until it was deemed safe. So yeah, they're minimal issues afterwards. Yeah.
So what's the process for storing lithium batteries? Like, could have this been prevented? Is there like a protocol for battery storage and taken back?
So there is a protocol for universal waste storage. We've been doing this for a very, very long time. This is the first fire of its kind in that building. This is a very, very good example of items that are incredibly difficult to get rid of, that legislation hasn't quite caught up on the storage, on how to properly dispose. PV panels, solar panels is another really good example. We probably held this battery for too long, for sure. And that is in part due to the difficulty of having someone take it. So our general hazardous waste providers don't offer services of a battery that size. We're talking about a battery about the size of a regular office desk. So it came out of either a car or a forklift. And what gave us difficulty in disposing of it is that it was disposed of illegally. So it was not disposed of in the proper manner. And there was no markings or readily identifiable way to figure out who the manufacturer of it was. So generally with lithium batteries that size, the protocol is to get in touch with the manufacturer, and they are the ones who are responsible for disposing of it. Since we couldn't do that and we couldn't ascertain who manufactured it, we were put in a pretty difficult spot. And in general, this is a very good reminder that our hazardous waste facility, while it sees an incredible amount of waste throughout the year, it is not specialized for these type of things. It is very, very residential and very small business centric. And these type of disposed items are difficult for our staff and for our facility to store and handle appropriately.
So as a rule, we don't take those.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah. And so this, okay. Good to know. Go ahead.
A follow-up on, so how did it, they just come down and roll it out of from the building? Or?
Yeah, in general, things that are incredibly hard to get rid of, we have a tendency of finding in front of our property in the morning. So our 6:30 shift, 6:30 a.m. is the first individuals on the scene, and it's not uncommon for them to find illegally dumped material in front of our property. Yeah.
Don't do that. I'll open it up for public comment. Does anybody have any public comment online? All right, I'll bring it back to the board of directors to see if there's any further questions.
No further questions, but thank you. Sorry you had to, I mean, I'm sure that was a lot to deal with, still is. Seems like this will be a growing need in our community. So I'm kind of just, not today, but curious to, I imagine y'all are, due to this situation, kind of thinking about how do we address this in the future. So, maybe we can have an opportunity as a board to think about, things like this at another meeting.
So there's usually when someone has something that has a lithium battery, they're responsible. There's a way for them usually to
so it's
take
size
the right.
Yeah, it's size dependent. So we'll take normal lithium batteries. We'll take batteries out of your computer or your cell phone, something like that. But when you start talking about batteries that power vehicles, that's not something that we are set up or designed to handle. We are fortunate that we have the suppression system in place that we do, not only at our hazardous waste facility, but our universal waste shed. But there are an enormous amount of HHWs across the state that aren't like that. They put their universal waste just in a locker or in a bin. The other transfer stations in the county probably do not have a suppression system similar to ours for their universal waste. And so it has to do with the size and sometimes the chemistry of the battery. But those are in general not accepted at fixed facility household hazardous waste, which is what our facility is.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-04, authorizing Executive Director to enter into a contract with Republic Services for one-time hazardous waste transportation and disposal service agreement without competitive bidding due to emergency circumstances.
Can you turn your microphone on and say that? So it's
I'll second that.
awesome. Thank you. So we have motion by Director Castellano, a second by Director Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you for, that's really a shame. All right. Let us move on to item 5, which is to review and approve the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Can we get a staff report?
Thank you, Chair. So just as a brief reminder of the timeline for the 24-25 fiscal year, it began last month at this board's regular meeting with the board receiving the draft budget and providing direction as needed. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling conflicts, the Executive Advisory Committee was unable to meet in person, but the draft budget was provided to them along with the video of that board meeting. Jurisdiction staff had no significant changes to the draft as presented at this time. The board will receive the final budget this evening with all previous changes incorporated. At the time of the finalization of this packet, the HWMA was still in the process of reviewing the proposed recycling fee, as noted in the agenda. Staff requests the board set a time and date for a special meeting to review and approve this fee later on this evening. Staff will then circulate the final adopted resolution and fee schedules to necessary parties. And finally, on July 1st of 2024, the fiscal year will begin. So there are very minimal changes from the draft budget as presented last month. HWMA staff worked with Rogue Waste to review and finalize new solid waste baseline assumptions, which was one of the largest things that we called out at that last meeting. Additionally, the finalized CPI was applied to these costs. This resulted in minimal changes to HWMA and the satellite facility of Recology Eel River and brought Humboldt Sanitation satellite facility fees in line with the rest. One significant change is a split fee for pressure-treated wood from residents and commercial customers that we'll touch on a little bit later. As an overview of the budget assumptions, they've remained largely unchanged from the draft as presented, with staff having a high level of confidence in not only the tonnage projections, but the predicted levels of backhauls as well. CPI adjustments for the major contracts have now been finalized, with staff's predictions being extremely accurate for the most part. Again, revenues have remained largely unchanged from the draft, with a change of around $20,000 of additional gross revenue from the finalization of some CIPs and countywide fees. The authority's projected gross revenue for the coming fiscal year is right around $15,700,000. Expenditures also remain largely unchanged, with a slight increase to the authority's insurance costs. Projected net income for the authority for the coming fiscal year is still projected at a net zero. As previously noted, staff in concert with Rogue Waste reassessed and solidified new baseline assumptions for solid waste transportation and disposal, bringing Humboldt Sanitation satellite fees in line with everyone else. The final fees are as follows. Self-haul is at $192.41 a ton. Franchise delivered waste at $172.89 a ton. The satellite fee for Recology Eel River is $145.45 a ton. And finally, Humboldt Sanitation satellite fee is $143.23 a ton. Of note, the only change to the fee structure from the draft is the related treated wood waste. We have split this into two, residential and commercial, and I'll touch on that again a little bit later. So since September of 2020, HWMA has been required to handle treated wood waste in a specific way outside our general solid waste operations. This results in the additional staff, admin, and disposal costs. Traditionally, we have charged an admin fee of $10 per load plus material weight charged at the regular tipping fee. Staff over the last year has analyzed these loads and their associated costs, and while residents generally have minimal or incidental amounts of treated wood from small home projects or general cleanups, commercial loads are much larger in scale, and staff time needed to manage it is much greater. Staff believes the residential fee should remain the same, but a new fee was developed to ensure costs are covered from commercial loads. Staff will continue to monitor these loads and their associated costs and provide updates to this board as necessary. Additionally, green waste fees and their projected tonnage remain unchanged from the draft budget. The finalized fees are $97.30 for material delivered directly to the processing facility and $133.31 for material delivered to the Hawthorne Street transfer station. The majority of the authority reserves remain unchanged with the exception of the operating reserve. The required funding has decreased from the budget by about $4,000 from the draft. This is simply due to the finalization of CIPs for related items coming in slightly under staff's original projections. The budget as presented includes a cost of living adjustment for all employees of 4.1%, and the proposed organizational chart remains unchanged from the draft. Going forward, HWMA will now utilize the specified methodology and appropriate consumer price indexes as proposed in the draft budget. Staff believes utilizing those annual averages will insulate both the HWMA and employees from inflation outliers and maintain HWMA wages in a competitive band with local businesses and ensure recruitment and retention efforts remain competitive. Additionally, as noted by this board in April, staff will develop a schedule and potential costs for an outside agency to perform the salary survey work prior to the 26-27 fiscal year. One area of note that the board asked staff to take a look at was the illegal disposal and cleanup funds. And as requested by this board, HWMA staff looked at the current use and funding levels. Current expenditures sit around $18,000 used at the time of this finalization, and only 2 jurisdictions have utilized the funds so far this fiscal year. At this time, staff has maintained the funding level of $54,000 as presented at the draft budget meeting, but will begin to explore potential expansion of use cases that members may be able to utilize more easily. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
You're still gonna get a recruiting someone to do the wage study, so that was what that.
That is correct. We originally were aiming obviously for this fiscal year, but with the delay of opening the organics processing facility, and we talked about this a little bit last month as well, it would be more fiscally responsible to hold off on having that salary survey done until those positions can be better outlined and created so that we get an idea of those costs as well.
Are we still, are we down any significant amount of employees or
No.
I'm so,
what are we talking about filling an operational director? Is that?
Yeah, the director of operations position is still currently unfilled, and we are actively recruiting for that position. Yeah.
That's all
go ahead. I'm surprised. So this whole fiscal year, only $18,000 has been utilized with between 2 jurisdictions. I'm sure they're like Arcadia and Eureka, right?
It's Eureka and the County of Humboldt.
Oh, okay. So that means there's money left till the end of this fiscal year.
That is correct.
Dibs, also. I mean, I'm just wondering why
So the use case, and like I touched on a little bit last month and obviously tonight, is the use cases can be very strict. So the illegal dumping and cleanup funds are pigeonholed for use of illegal dumping and cleanup of member agency public spaces. I would suggest taking a look at maybe expanding the potential use. But I will say that prior to this fiscal year, the last 3 fiscal years, it was fully utilized within about 8 months of the fiscal year. So whether those projects just seem to not come up this year, or in general, staff had found other avenues for payment, whether that's grants or other funding. I can't speak to that, but I do know that prior to this year, the previous 3 fiscal years, it was well utilized.
Yeah, I'd like to at some point explore ways to make it easier for jurisdictions to access those funds, because I know that there are a lot of illegal dumping. So, but that's good to know. Thanks. Director Castellano? Yeah.
Similar questions. So thank you, Chair Matthews, for asking those. And yeah, and I would be hopeful maybe that we could have an opportunity to kind of look more into this in the future and potentially expand it. You know, one of the things I'm curious about is just, like what are the parameters around its use? And, there's, certainly a lot of spaces where I think it could be utilized more.
So if the board would like, we can bring forward the current operational model for the illegal disposal and cleanup fund and how member agencies can access it. I'd be more than happy to present an overview of it and take input from not only this board, but your jurisdiction staff as well, to see what type of alterations we can make to it.
I'd love that. I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Coming from an education background, and in view of this lithium battery problem that we had, I'm wondering if there's any educational component to illegal dumping, and how are we getting it out to the public not to continue to do any of this?
Yeah, so for our hazardous waste and our universal waste programs, they are by far the longest running programs that HWMA offers. The extent and the financial extent that the authority has gone to educate and outreach that type of material is extensive, much more than any program that we do, probably combined. And that is simply because of the threat, not only to the environment, but to human health as well. We've had individuals come that have no idea what is in their vehicle, and if there was an issue, they would not have made it to the transfer station, quite frankly. So that is something that we take very seriously. That's also something that our new education and outreach person has fully dove into. So I am very much looking forward to having a little bit better education outreach material, and mirror our efforts in the past that we have on spending and integrating with the community, letting them know what type of programs and material they can bring and how to bring them as well.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think I'll open it up for public comment, and then I'll come back to see if the board has any additional questions. Is there any public comment? Anybody online? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. This is pretty much just the same thing that we saw in August that we already talked about, a lot of things. And so that's correct. Just the treated wood, I think, is okay.
So I will make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2024-25 budget and adopt resolution 2025-01 for the collection of integrated waste management fees.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion from Director Jones and a second from Director Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, well, let's get out our calendars then and try to find a time to set a special meeting. Good luck.
So thank you, Chair. So staff requested board members discuss and set a date and a time for a special meeting to be held at the end of May 2024 to approve the recycling materials processing fee for the year 2024-2025. In the staff report, staff recommends either Tuesday, May 28th or Thursday, May 30th. An additional time that is opened up is Monday, May 20th as well. So those are the 3 dates that these chambers I have confirmed at that date and time are available. A little background on why the special meeting is needed. Very simply, HWMA is still taking a look at the packet that Recology submitted. And I want to make sure that it's understood that it's no fault of Recology's and it's on HWMA staff as to why this has been delayed. But we, in light of the issues with the solid waste baseline fees, a majority of our attention went to that when developing the draft and this finalized budget. And I want to make sure that this fee is also given the same time. So this is a timeline that I've reached out to jurisdictions. They've said that as long as we finalize and get it to them by the 31st, that we should not disrupt their general budget making.
Okay, well, let's go down the line. So you said the Monday the 20th,
Monday the 20th, Tuesday the
28th,
28th, or Thursday the 30th, all at 5:30.
So I can't do the 28th because that's our regular Blue Lake City
Okay.
Council meeting. But I can do the 20th and the 30th, or the 30th.
I can do, I could have done Wednesday. No, I can't do Wednesday the 29th. Was Tuesday the 28th? Was that
Yeah, that's the one I can.
that's the one you can't do. All right, then the 20th.
20th?
20th or the 30th.
Yeah, I can't do the 30th. So I can do the 20th.
The 28th, the 30th, or the 20th. So 20th, the Monday the 20th. It sounds like Tuesday the 28th is out. So Monday the 20th or Thursday, May 30th.
You can do the 20th, Monday the 20th?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to cancel a class I teach for the 3rd Monday in a row, but you know, it's cool. We can do that.
What time is your class? I mean,
It's at 5:30.
can we do, I mean, how long, is this going to be a long meeting? Can we do it a little earlier than 5:30?
If that is the board's pleasure, I can see what we can do.
Would it, I mean, as
That's-
4:30 on Monday the 20th, would that work for everybody?
Okay.
So 4:30 would work for you? 4:30 would work for you? 4:30 Monday the 20th?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to put that in my calendar right now. 4:30 Monday the 20th, before I schedule anything else. Sorry, give me a minute. I don't get it in my calendar now. Do we need public comment for that? No? All right, cheers. All right. Do we have any board member reports?
My only report is, as always, happy to tell you that our next Yard Waste Day in Blue Lake for Blue Lakers is Saturday, June 8th.
I will report out that as far as Arcata, Arcata has 2 big events coming up. We've got Oyster Fest on the 15th of June and then the 4th of July Jubilee, and we plan to make those zero waste events. So we're really excited about that. We thank Recology for being awesome, and we'd love to talk to HWMA too about helping us be more zero waste. But do we have any reports
Not at
from
this
next-
time, Chair. Thank you.
Oh my God. I guess we'll adjourn. All right. Thank you.